Okay, so that should be sharing my screen now. Well, first, I will just give a brief introduction to myself and the project. So I've been working with Dan for, it's almost been about a year now on this project for the Paradise Memorial Trail. And I'm Megan. I'm the lead bike park designer at American Ramp Company. I've been on site visits, been leading some of the design and working with Dan and getting input from the community on this project. So yeah, we're excited to share where we're at on the design with you all. And for this presentation, I'm gonna be going through some more introductory slides on just getting some terms defined, such as what is a bike park, what is a skills trail, and then I will be sharing the survey results from the community engagement survey that we had put out. That's how we informed our design decisions. And then I'll be sharing the design that we have so far. So what is a skills trail? We wanted to just briefly go over what exactly we're working on designing. So the trail currently is a paved multi-use trail, but we're looking to add some progressive bike park features on the sides of it and paralleling it. So what this would look like are dirt trails with undulation from rollers and berms, as well as some prefabricated features. And the focus of that is to really give riders an experience that caters to beginners, intermediate, and advanced riders. So here are some more examples of what that might look like. It can be anything from features that are lower to the ground and wider, or features that help riders build skills around momentum and bike handling techniques. So this bottom right image shows a skinny, and in a lot of these images, I'm showing prefabricated ramps and different features like that. There are benefits to these types of features because you're not using dirt to sculpt everything. So there is a huge reduction in maintenance. So we're kind of balancing future maintenance costs with more upfront prefabricated features. Also, when I do get into the design, you'll see some images of natural features. So a lot of these can be replicated with things like stone or logs, so that it is a kind of having more of a balance of natural features versus prefabricated features. Okay, so that was a very, very quick introduction to some of these topics. And when I go through the survey results, you'll see more examples of some of these mountain bike specific features. So there will be more visuals coming up. And I am working with this chat box. So if anyone has any questions during this, feel free to type a question and I'll keep an eye on that and try to answer it as I go. So to go into this project specifically, we launched a survey that was online and got 34 responses. So of those respondents, we had many, I would say a majority of them between age 31 to 49. We had some younger people answer the survey. We also were assuming that if there were children under the age of 12, that maybe their parents answered for them. But there's a really good range of respondents in here. So this is something that we take into consideration when we're designing. And so now we'll kind of break down what those responses were. We looked at transportation, how people plan to get there. It seems like a majority of people will be driving, but this project is unique because it is about a 6-mile linear multi-use trail with these features on it. So that is very different from something like a bike park that's just a consolidated 1-acre bike park. So I imagine that as this becomes more of a defined community space along the trail, that maybe more people will ride their bike to it. But the trail itself is this piece of connectivity that goes through Paradise. So we do anticipate maybe these numbers might change as people use it. Then once the bike park features are added, it looks like people are anticipating that they may use it monthly, followed by weekly usage. So that is pretty common for bike parks and features like this along a trail. So this question is also to help Paradise kind of gauge, you know, what might be some maintenance measures that need to be taken or considered. And then just some comments that people had, like, because we were focusing on having different nodes along the trail and looking at things like, you know, proximity to a high school or to any future development. And it looks like we had some people also suggest close to downtown. So those were also considerations when we were planning where different nodes should be. So then the types of bike park elements, they really vary. They can be specifically for more like a flow trail. There could be dirt jumps. There can be downhill style rollers. So those are a little bit, these are all just kind of like sub elements within the mountain biking umbrella. And so we took this information and then designed several different types of mountain biking experiences along the trail, which I will show those later in the presentation. Park use time. People anticipate that they may be using this before noon. That's a majority. And then through other times of day. And this is also to help with planning because maybe there could be, it helps answer a question of, you know, will there be lights or not? And this question usually does go more hand in hand with a condensed type of bike park. So it is a little bit different for a linear trail. It would be more if there is a precedent of the trail having lights already or not. So that is more for planning usage. Then for amenities, restrooms, bike tool stand, drinking fountains. These are also just planned into our design. Like where will we have these in proximity to these bike park hubs along the trail? So participants were mainly intermediate riders currently, some beginners, and then there are some advanced riders. So what this information told us is that there may be a need, because there are mainly intermediate riders, we may have a need for more advanced features so that those intermediate riders can grow and then become more advanced, but there needs to be elements in place to help with that growth. And then beginners, you know, sometimes people come to the sport and there isn't really a beginner trail or something to accommodate beginners. So this is also something that we wanted to keep in mind in designing for progression, to really make sure that we have something for beginners all the way through advanced. Okay, and then trail zone preference. We wanted to get a gauge of what people are looking for. Some communities, everyone wants dirt jumps. Some communities, people want to see more of like a technical skills trail. So there was a pretty good spread of everything on here, with pump and flow at the highest. So luckily that is something that integrates well almost in every category of bike park type. So that's something that you'll see in the design. There are a lot of these. Okay, and then bike type. And I'm also just looking at the chat. Okay, so bike type. Most people have full suspension mountain bikes. This is not surprising given the terrain of Northern California and 19% hardtails. So again, with progressive trail design for mountain bikes, all of these bike types would be accommodated. BMX is a little bit of an outlier. However, a BMX could ride everything that we're designing. It would just be a different experience. We also have some dirt jumps that are planned in the design, so that would accommodate BMX as well. And again, this is a really unique project because there is the multi-use trail connecting everything. So there's the hardscape in there that usually isn't in most projects. Okay, trail surface. The preference was mainly natural trail surface. This would be compared to something like asphalt. So we were informed by this percentage to mainly focus on dirt type design. But if we were to do something like asphalt, it really doesn't affect the design as much as it does the budget. Skills development preference. A lot of people were interested in berms. So that was something we wanted to make sure to incorporate in the design. Rock gardens, using local basalt rock columns. That's something that we also integrated and took directly from the survey. Trail type preference, smooth and flowy. That's really going hand in hand with a lot of the other answers we received. Technical, we usually see advanced riders wanting to see more technical features. And then, so here are those visuals that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. So we have one question that specifically asked about these prefabricated mountain bike features. And it looks like split decisions, rollers, and teeter-totter. Those were some of the highest rated features that people were looking for. And you can see some examples of those on the left. Here's the split decision. So again, a really widespread of pretty much everything. So we did our best to try to incorporate as much as we could in the design while also, keeping everything programmed so that we are focusing on beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and not just specifically focusing on one user type. All right, so I'm going to pause right there. If anyone has any questions currently, let me double check this chat. Currently, I'm not seeing any questions, but Dan, if I am missing something, please feel free to let me know.
Yeah, Megan, there's something that came up on the Q&A part. So there was a question about were bicyclist responses only looked at, or was equestrian pedestrian responses viewed as well? And I can give, maybe it's a good time to kind of give a little context for the whole project. So, I think one thing that's really important for us to note, this is a plan and it's collecting input. This is funding that came from Butte County, very fortunate getting from Butte County. And we still have yet to run these ideas by Town of Paradise and see how it runs through their filter, even though we've been collecting feedback from them so far. One of the things that we have collected along the way, we have a trails advisory group we've been meeting with just in general. They've been giving us good information. There are quite a few equestrians have been part of that group, and they've been giving us good information as far as some of the features, better connection to the trail, Yellowstone Kelly Trail from Moore Road Park, for example, getting water, that type of thing. So certainly that's input that is helpful for us, but obviously this kind of focuses in a little bit more on the bike features part of it. Next steps for us after this, just so everybody knows, is we're going to take this information with Megan and go back to the town of Paradise, see how these things fit in with essentially a volunteers and so forth. So I just want to give that little context, and I'll monitor for questions, Megan.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I just opened up the Q&A, so I have that now. Okay, great. So then now I'll get into the design we have so far. So here we have the entire trail that's marked in orange, and then along it, I have stars to indicate where each bike park zone or node is located, as well as some suggestions for seating, bike repair stations, and water fountains. These are all spaced, the bike repair stations are spaced roughly every 2.5 to 3.5 miles along the multi-use trail, and then the restrooms and water stations around every 1/4 to 1.5 miles on the trail. So I have a little context map on the right to help orient to which part of the trail we're in, but generally I'll be going north to south. So this is near that the Moore Road ballpark area, this first design, and then zooming in more. So this is a stretch of trail, and in here we have, this is where we brought in the flow trail with rollers and berms directly from the survey. So you'll see we have a series of rollers and berms that goes through a tree section paralleling the trail, rejoins, crosses the trail, and then continues with some rollers. And then these 3 features are what are shown. So mountaintop, that's more of a balance feature, step down roller, momentum, and A-frame, combination of both. This is gauged really beginner, but what's nice is that even more beginner trails, an advanced rider can have a lot of fun on them. It was more the built features that we wanted to make sure are more beginner for these nodes that are on the very north of the trail and very south of the trail. Okay, the next section, we're moving south a little bit more. This is near Wagstaff, just north of it. So in this section, and this is starting to get into different types of mountain bike riding experience. That first one was more flowy, kind of a flow trail, pump track style trail that was the first one. This one focuses more on beginner jumps. So in here, it starts off coming off the trail, berm turn, and then a Nessie, which is a momentum building feature. It also helps control speed before a rider gets into these tabletops. And these ones we have shown as just prefabricated features, reason being that traditional dirt jump, the outslopes take up a lot of space. And on this portion of the trail, we were working with a more narrow section paralleling the multi-use trail. So that's where we bring in this prefabricated feature, because you don't have those big outslopes and can still achieve the same type of jump experience. So 2 of those, and then a decision point, a rider can go around this feature, go on the berm, go on some rollers, or they can go on this rock feature. And it's a combination of prefabricated wood on a stainless steel frame, and then we would want to use local rock, so it would be some of the basalt. And this gives the riders a chance to choose, do I want to have a more technical riding experience or continue with a more flowy experience? Okay, so now moving further south, this is a really interesting area because it's around the high school. And so this has two nodes that are pretty close to each other. The first one is, this is kind of we're getting into more of a technical section where we have we have the split decision. So that was one of the top voted features. So it starts out with kind of a more intermediate line, and then to the right is intermediate or advanced. With a lot of these, depending on the writing style and skill level, an advanced writer could write this in a totally different way than a beginner. So if they were to take this line coming down and staying on the left side of the skills zone, then they would hit an A-frame followed by a rock feature. And if they were to take the split on the split decision, there would be a rolling berm turn and then a step down roller. So this is more of a combination of either a flow line or a skills line. And then now we're also beginning to integrate a return line or make this a sessionable area. So what that means is if someone wanted to just focus on this part of the trail for a little bit and do laps, that's called sessioning. So they could do that, do a U-turn, ride back up on these features, which are focused on technical riding and they're more focused on balance. Those are the two features at the bottom. And again, we want to design in these types of prefabricated features where appropriate, because then that reduces the amount of maintenance required for dirt features. All right, and now we have, this is the design that's closest to the high school, so it's definitely a hub. We also designed it so that it is functioning more like a hub than all of the other areas by having a seating zone. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, by having some seating, this would be another area where we have a bike repair station, maybe even a water fountain can be planned. And this is more of a dirt jump line. So it's a beginner tabletop dirt jump line. I think this image really says exactly what it would look like. There would be wooden kickers, which is the takeoff. And we would want to plan that to be wood because the takeoff lip of a dirt jump is the zone that needs the most maintenance because it's the most important part of the jump. If that radius isn't shaped correctly, then it becomes a safety hazard. So we try to plan in wooden kickers for the takeoff, and then the body of the jump can be dirt. So a series of 3 tabletops followed by a roller and then a berm turn. And this is another one of those sessionable areas. So riders can just keep doing small laps of that. We have a few features on the return trail, which is also the uphill part of the trail. All of those are lined here. Maybe you can even recognize them because a few of these have been used earlier on in the design. The other cool part about this area, and let me just zoom out for a second. So we're at this lower star by Elliott Road. So in the design, Elliott Road is at the very bottom, and when people hopefully ride here, or maybe they park somewhere nearby, but right when they get on the trail, there are these, there are features on the right side of the trail that invite people to ride up on them, and rather than just staying on the multi-use trail the entire ride up, there are some offshoots that they can take some wooden features. Okay, so now we've made it to the bottom of the trail near Pearson Road. This is the final hub at the community park. So this park, it already functions as a hub. So we've decided to also plan in this bike trail. It goes along the side, and we were trying to keep in mind to keep a distance from the creek that runs below it. So we're really paralleling the trail closely, and all while still offshooting from it and having this is a more cross-country type of experience. So coming down from the north south, a rider would split off the trail. We would have a rock garden, which would be those local basalt rock columns, followed by an A-frame, a skinny, that's more technical riding, and then some more rock gardens, and then some technical features on the way out. The snake ladder is one of them. So this area was really special because it is at the community park, and it would also be a good zone to kind of highlight what is on the rest of the multi-use trail. So those were the designs that we've been working on, and here's the map to just show where those are again. And that is the end of my presentation. So any feedback or discussion is welcome. That can be in the chat.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention one thing about the community park. Part of it is brought to Megan's attention about the idea that there may be a tile wall along there, and so this feature would run parallel to that, may give opportunity for folks to see the backside or use the backside of it in a different way. And something else that I wanted to point out was there was quite a bit of comments on wanting to see a flow trail along kind of the length of it. And flow trail from a mountain bike standpoint just means something that's kind of like, a little bit more, it has some bank turns to it and so forth. But that also could be utilized for other folks that want to use the off-road part of it. So like equestrians and so forth on that. What we'll do is if you guys have a question or comment, please put it in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll take off the mute part if you want to ask any questions. So I'll open it up now. Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Dan.
Not seeing anything yet. Oh, here we go. Scarlett. Scarlett, you're on mute. Please unmute.
Whoops. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, you knew I was going to chime in on this. We just want to make sure that as equestrians, we do use that trail quite frequently. And we just want to make sure that we still will have access to ride that trail, not on the pavement, because we don't want to be on the pavement if we can avoid it. We want to make sure that there is still going to be use or in areas that equestrians can ride that trail if these ramps are put in.
So, and Dan, I think you might be able to speak into this as well, but as far as the bike park components, so any feature is will have a bypass line, or the trail will be wide enough so that a bike can pass. And this is just going off the top of my head. Width of a bike, I would imagine, is pretty similar to a path of a horse. So I don't see it as an obstacle that a horse could not walk around. But yeah, and also these nodes, they are just on those 5 parts of the trail. So what's happening in between, there aren't any bike park elements. But to directly answer your question on the features being obstacles, there would be a way around them to avoid them.
Yeah, Scarlett, I was going to point out something else too, is that, as you probably know, that the width of the easement property that the town owns varies quite a bit. In some areas, it's like 90 feet on one side, and other areas it narrows up. And I think the areas that Megan picked were areas that were, for one thing, had kind of more favorable neighbors potentially around it, either commercial or park or that type of thing nearby. And then I think there's probably enough room for the whole length to get out of it. In the whole scheme of things, the features are relatively small in comparison to the trail width. You know, I'll ask you, I guess, going the other way on that is what amenities, because I think we wanted it, definitely has a bike focus for this, but we also want to know what other amenities may be really desirable from a recreational user standpoint. So maybe there's some features that you'd like to see on here that you could share with us.
Yeah, I mean, as far as equestrians, like I said, the best thing for us is to stay off the pavement. So if these horses do decide that they're going to drop their little manure, that we're not on the pavement, so we don't interfere with walkers and things. You know, that's the main part, is just if we can get onto the dirt, that's much better for the horses' feet. It's better for everybody involved. You know, we just want to make sure that we're good partners for the town and people here. So that's just, we just want to make sure that we still have access to that.
Thank you, Scarlett. You know, one thing I was going to ask you, I know that there's a lot of, and you're definitely connected with this, but trying to build rider skill, equestrian rider skill. You know, would it be helpful to have a gate set up somewhere that's a gate to nowhere, right? That someone can practice going in and out of it, or that type of thing. Are there some features that may help horsemanship?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Gates like that would be good. Step overs are good to have. You could put railroad ties down where the horses kind of, you know, every like 6 feet or something where they can step over. That's also a very good obstacle type things. Absolutely. That would be wonderful.
If you have some examples, perhaps email it to me, and I'll share it with Megan and her team.
Okay. That'd be, yeah, we can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Looking for other questions. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Perhaps you answered everything, Megan. What I wanted to share with everybody is that there is certainly, if anything comes up afterward, I'll put it in the chat as well. Send us an email at info@paradiseprpd.com. We'll certainly forward on to American Ramp. And, you know, it'd be great to have that. Any input on this. Megan, perhaps you can share a little bit after this process. What is your timeline for, you know, collecting this information and kind of next steps?
Yeah, and I did just see one question in the chat that I think I'll answer really quickly. It's any plans for a pump track or more BMX style park for the future? Chico losing their BMX track leaves us with nothing close for the kids. I know that it's not related to this project, but there may be some future projects in the works that do involve a pump track or more BMX style stuff. But for this, as far as this project goes, not within the scope. So, and then Tammy says other obstacles would definitely be beneficial. Jeff asks, will there be any new signage? You know, signs would be really great to incorporate into this. Something like, you know, beginner feature ahead or advanced feature ahead, or trails merge. Those are always really helpful signs to have included.
Megan, you know, one other comment that came up was, and this wasn't here, but the idea of having some additional interpretive signs that talk about the history. What was a comment that was made from some of the folks that had produced those signs, and I think that would be that may be something just to incorporate as a note. It maybe have a you know, good opportunity to kind of fill in some of the spaces that may have some gaps on those signs.
Definitely. Okay, great. I think that was all of the chat questions. So the next steps for this, we've pretty much finalized the concept design. So really, in terms of design work, we have completed that. So I think next would be working on some cost estimates, and then going from there.
But what is your steps here?
Dan, I think you're cutting out a little bit. Okay, I see. So Dan, it looks like you're a timeline for next steps. The timeline for next steps is we'll take all of these, develop some cost estimates. That'll take a couple of weeks, and then we would get back in touch and go over all of those with you.
I saw that Nicole had a question regarding the when would we see this built? And just kind of walk through this, is that the first step here is getting this input and a plan and some cost. One path is us doing some things, especially the flow type course. Pretty easy to do, doesn't require a lot of technical stuff, certainly be something we'd want to work with the town. I think signage is a great idea on it to kind of keep people understanding what the intent is and kind of how the rules of the road. The second path is to develop some grant funding for it. And then especially some of these features definitely are going to be a little bit more costly, and we need to have some either fundraising locally or kind of grants that would help us build this out. But it's the kind of the full project would require some definite funding to make it happen. I'm not seeing any other questions, Megan.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Yeah, so folks, I did put in the chat the info@paradiseprpd.com. Certainly looking for any information, ideas, stuff that we can share with Megan and her team at American Ramp. But unless there's any questions or final thoughts, Megan, I think we are good.
Great. Sounds good. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and then Dan, I'll send you this presentation in case anyone missed it and would like to check it out. I know you recorded it as well.
Yeah, so I'll put the recording up, and then also I think the presentation would be great to put on the website. So we can have people kind of look at it there and provide comments that may have missed the meeting today. But very much appreciate the information, Megan.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks all.
All right, thanks everyone.